The crystal screens in the Galactic Council chamber flickered with terrible news. Ambassador Chen He-jin sat in the human section, watching as the data scrolled past in dozens of alien languages. She did not need to understand every symbol to know what they meant. Death was coming to the galaxy again. "The Void Devourers have returned," announced High Counselor Zex Thara, her crystalline body chiming with each word. The Zephyrian leader had lived for 3,000 years, but even she sounded afraid. "Our deep space monitors have confirmed it. They emerge from the dark between galaxies, just as they did 50,000 years ago." Chen felt her stomach drop. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories of the last Devourer War. Entire star systems had been consumed. Billions had died. The survivors had built their current civilization on the bones of the old one, swearing never to let such horror happen again. "How many?" asked General Corix of the Corvan Empire. His scaled face showed no emotion, but his claws scratched nervously at his armrest. 17 confirmed, replied the monitor technician. "More may follow." They moved toward the Kethmari systems. A wave of sad sounds filled the chamber. The Kethmari were beloved by most species. They made beautiful art and music. They solved problems with wisdom instead of weapons. Their ocean worlds were peaceful places where other species came to think and heal. Chen looked toward the Kethmari section. Tidesinger Velathari sat perfectly still, her large dark eyes reflecting the horrible numbers on the screens. Silver tears ran down her blue-green face. She knew what those numbers meant for her people. "We must defend them," Chen said, standing up. Her voice carried clearly in the chamber's perfect acoustics. High Counselor Zex Thara's crystal form dimmed slightly. "Ambassador Chen, please review the tactical data before speaking." The main screen changed to show military projections. Chen read them carefully, her heart sinking with each line. The Void Devourers were heading straight for the 3 main Kethmari worlds. To defend those worlds, the galaxy would need to commit 80% of all its military ships. The computer predicted that 60 to 70% of those ships would be destroyed. "The mathematics are clear," said Nexari Science Director Quintal, his metal fingers clicking against his datapad. "We can evacuate perhaps 2 million Kethmari before the Devourers arrive. The rest—" He did not finish the sentence. "The rest die," Chen said quietly. "That's what you're saying. We abandon them to save ourselves." "We save the galaxy," corrected General Corix. "If we lose most of our fleet defending the Kethmari, we will be helpless when more Devourers come. This is not about want. This is about survival." Chen looked around the chamber. She saw fear in every face, every eye, every expression. These were not cowards. They were leaders who had to make impossible choices. But she also saw something else. Relief. They were relieved to have a logical reason not to fight. "The human position?" asked High Counselor Zex Thara. Chen thought of Earth. Her small, young world, with its tiny fleet. Humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. They were the newest voice in a chamber full of ancient civilizations. What right did they have to judge species that had survived for millions of years? But she also thought of her grandmother's stories. Stories of humans who had stood against impossible odds because it was right. Stories of people who had chosen death before dishonor. Stories of a species that measured strength not by power, but by the willingness to use that power for others. "Humanity votes to defend the Kethmari," Chen said clearly. The chamber fell silent. Not the quiet of consideration, but the shocked silence of disbelief. "Ambassador," said Science Director Quintal gently, "perhaps you need more time to review the data. Your species has only 43 military vessels. Even if you committed your entire fleet—" "We commit our entire fleet," Chen interrupted. General Corix leaned forward. "You cannot be serious. 43 ships against 17 Devourers? Your people would die for nothing." "They would die for something," Chen replied. For the idea that we don't abandon our friends when things get hard. Tide singer Velathari suddenly stood. Her musical voice carried clearly through the chamber. No. She spoke in the Kethmari way. I will not allow this. Humans are too young. Too few. You must not die for us. Chen walked over to the Kethmari section. She took Velathari's webbed hand in her own. That's not your choice to make. Just like it's not our choice to make you face this alone. This is madness, said General Korix. One species cannot stand against the Void Devourers. Then join us, Chen said, looking directly at him. You have the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The Nexari have the best technology. The Zephyrians have the most experience. Together, we could win. Together, we would die. High Counselor Zexthera said sadly. The losses would be too great. One by one, the other species voted. The results were always the same. Evacuation. Retreat. Survival of the many over the few. Chen stood alone as the chamber emptied. The great leaders of the galaxy filed out, already making plans to save what they could and abandon the rest. Only she and Velathari remained. Your people should not do this, Velathari spoke through her tears. We are not worth so many human lives. Chen squeezed the alien hand gently. My grandmother once told me something. She said that you're not judged by what you do when things are easy. You're judged by what you do when everything is falling apart, and you have to choose between what's safe and what's right. And humanity chooses, right? Chen smiled sadly. We choose to try. Maybe we'll fail. Maybe we'll all die. But we won't die wondering what would have happened if we had stood together instead of running away. Outside the great windows of Concordia Prime, the stars shone peacefully in the dark. Somewhere among them, ancient horrors moved toward innocent worlds. And somewhere else, on a small blue planet, humanity prepared to stand against impossible odds. The youngest voice in the galaxy was about to teach the oldest civilizations what it truly meant to be civilized. The emergency session of Earth's Global Defense Council met in the deep bunkers beneath Geneva. President Zhang Wei looked around the table, at faces filled with fear and determination. Outside, protesters gathered in every major city. Some demanded humanity honor its commitment. Others begged their leaders not to send their children to die. Let me be clear about what we're facing, said Admiral Sarah Kim, her voice steady despite the terrible data she presented. Our entire space fleet consists of 43 combat vessels. The smallest Void Devourer is larger than our biggest ship. We are talking about sending mosquitoes to fight elephants. General Rodriguez slammed his fist on the table. Mosquitoes that carry malaria can kill elephants. We're not just tonnage and firepower. We're human beings with brains and courage. Courage doesn't stop antimatter beams, Admiral Kim replied. I'm not saying we shouldn't fight. I'm saying we need to be honest about what fighting means. Most of our people will die. President Zhang studied the faces around her. These were not politicians playing games. These were military leaders who would have to send young people to their deaths. People like Captain Marcus Thompson, who sat quietly at the far end of the table. Captain Thompson, President Zhang said. The UNS Defiant will lead our fleet. What are your thoughts? Thompson looked up. His weathered face showed the strain of command. My daughter serves on the UNS Soul. My son-in-law is on the Harmony. My decision sends my own family to die. He paused. But if I don't send them, what kind of galaxy will be left? One where the strong abandon the weak? One where we only help when it's convenient? Dr. Sarah Chen, the president's science advisor, leaned forward. We've received detailed files from Tide Singer Velathari. The Kethmari have cultural knowledge about the last Devourer War. Their ancestor songs contain scientific data we're still analyzing. Songs? General Rodriguez asked. Their species encodes important information in musical memory. What sounds like art to us is actually advanced mathematics and biology. They know things about devourers that other species have forgotten. Admiral Kim pulled up new tactical displays. Even with their knowledge, our chances are minimal. We have 43 ships. The enemy has 17 creatures, each one a living battleship. The math doesn't work. The math never works, said Captain Thompson quietly. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans faced 1,000,000 Persians. The math didn't work there either. But sometimes, math isn't the point. President Zhang stood and walked to the great window that looked out over Lake Geneva. Even in the depths of the bunker, they had built windows. Humans needed to see sky, to remember what they were protecting. "I've been thinking about my grandfather," she said. "He fought in the Third World War. The odds were terrible then, too. People said resistance was useless, that the smart thing was to surrender and hope for mercy." She turned back to the room. "He told me something I've never forgotten. He said that some things are worth dying for, but more importantly, some things are worth living for. And if you won't die for what you believe, you're not really living." 7. The door chimed softly. An aide entered and whispered something to Dr. Chen. "Tide Singer Velathari has arrived," Dr. Chen announced. "She's requesting permission to address the council." "John." "Send her in," President Zhang said. Velathari entered the room like flowing water. Her graceful movements and musical voice always amazed humans. But today, her large eyes showed deep sadness. "Honored leaders of humanity," she spoke. "I come not to ask for your help, but to beg you to reconsider. We have learned that your entire fleet will join this battle. This cannot be. You are too few, too precious. The galaxy needs humanity's voice, not humanity's sacrifice." President Zhang approached the alien ambassador. "Tidesinger, with respect, that's not your decision to make, nor should it be yours." Velathari's musical voice cracked with emotion. "To ask another species to die for us goes against everything we believe. We would rather face extinction than have human blood on our conscience." Captain Thompson spoke up. "Tidesinger, my daughter is 23 years old. She joined the fleet to explore the galaxy and make friends with alien species. If I order her to stand down while your people die, what kind of galaxy am I giving her? One where friendship means nothing? Where help only comes when it's safe?" "You speak of honor," Velathari said sadly. "But honor without life is just pretty words. Life without honor is just existence," Thompson replied. President Zhang raised her hand for silence. "The decision is made. But Tidesinger, I want you to understand why." She activated the main display, showing Earth from space. 50 years ago, we were alone. We thought we were the only intelligent life in the universe. Then you found us. You and the other species welcomed us, taught us, shared knowledge that advanced our civilization by centuries. The display changed to show human colonies on other worlds, human ships exploring distant stars, human children learning alien languages in galactic schools. "You gave us the galaxy," President Zhang continued. "You showed us wonders we never imagined. And now, when our friends need help, you ask us to turn away? To become the kind of species that only takes and never gives? We won't do it." Velathari was quiet for a long moment. Then she began to sing softly in her own language. The humans couldn't understand the words, but they felt the meaning. It was a song of gratitude, mixed with grief. "If humanity is determined to fight," she finally said, "then we will fight beside you, not as victims to be saved, but as allies. We may not have warships, but we have knowledge, courage, and determination." Admiral Kim began issuing orders. All available vessels to be ready within 48 hours. Emergency production of torpedoes and fighters. Civilian ships volunteering for conversion to support vessels. "How many ships total?" asked General Rodriguez. 847 vessels, Admiral Kim replied. Everything that can fly and fight. Cargo haulers with missiles strapped to their hulls. Research ships carrying scientists who might find weaknesses. Even luxury yachts with volunteer crews. Captain Thompson smiled grimly. Not exactly regulation. Fleet composition. Nothing about this is regulation, President Zhang said. We're writing new rules. Rules that say when your friends are in trouble, you don't count the cost. You don't calculate the odds. You stand up and fight. Outside, the protests had grown larger. But now, instead of division, there was unity. Humanity had made its choice. They would stand with their friends, even if it meant standing alone. The youngest species in the galaxy was about to teach the oldest what it meant to keep promises. Captain Marcus Thompson stared at the tactical display aboard the UNS Defiant and tried not to show his fear. The first Void Devourer scout had entered Kethmari space 3 hours ago. On the screen, it looked like a dark mountain moving through the stars, easily the size of Earth's moon. Range to target? Thompson asked. 50,000 kilometers and closing, reported Lieutenant Kim Jung-soo from the weapons station. All ships report ready to engage. Thompson looked at the fleet readouts. 847 human vessels spread across space like angry wasps facing a giant. Most were military ships, but many were converted civilian craft with volunteer crews who had never fired a shot in anger. Remember, Thompson said over the fleet comm, we're not trying to match their firepower. We're trying to learn how they work. Hit them, study the results, and stay alive to share what you learn. The Devourer moved closer. Through the main view screen, Thompson could see its surface. It looked like a cross between a massive ship and a living creature. Dark metal plates covered what might have been skin. Strange lights pulsed along its hull like veins. Weapon ports opened like hungry mouths. Sir, called Science Officer Dr. Lisa Park from her station. I'm reading incredible energy signatures. This thing doesn't just have engines and weapons. It has what looks like a digestive system. Digestive system? It's processing matter it collected from the last system. Asteroids, space debris, maybe even pieces of destroyed ships. It's literally eating them and using the energy to grow larger. Thompson felt a chill. So every ship it destroys makes it stronger. Exactly. Traditional tactics won't work. If we just trade shots with it, we lose. The Devourer suddenly accelerated. Massive energy beams lanced out from its weapon ports. 3 human destroyers vanished instantly, turned to expanding clouds of superheated gas. All ships, evasive patterns, Thompson ordered. Don't group up. Make them work for every shot. The human fleet scattered like a school of fish avoiding a shark. But the Devourer was patient. It picked off isolated ships, one by one, its beams reaching across impossible distances with perfect accuracy. Torpedoes away, Lieutenant Kim announced. A spread of humanity's most advanced weapons streaked toward the alien creature. Thompson watched hopefully as the missiles struck. Explosions bloomed along the Devourer's hull like tiny flowers. When the light faded, the creature was completely undamaged. Direct hits, Kim reported grimly. Keep firing, Thompson ordered. We need to learn what hurts it. Clued. More ships died. The UNS Harmony, crewed by Thompson's son-in-law, took a glancing hit that vaporized half the ship. The survivors managed to reach escape pods, but Thompson had to watch good people die while their weapons did nothing. Sir, Dr. Park called out, excitement in her voice. I think I found something. Look at these readings. Thompson studied her display. What am I looking at? Energy fluctuations. Right after it fires, there's a brief moment when its defensive fields weaken. And look here. She highlighted a section near what might have been the creature's center. That area shows different thermal signatures. It might be a control center or brain. How do we reach it? Thompson asked. Our weapons can't penetrate the hull. Dr. Park pointed to another reading. These openings along its underside. They're intake ports for its feeding system. If we could get small ships inside. That's suicide, Lieutenant Kim said. The energy flows alone would tear apart anything that got too close. Not necessarily, Doctor. Park continued. The flows are cyclical. There are brief windows when the intake systems go dormant. A very small ship, perfectly timed, might make it through. Thompson studied the data. It was insane. It was also their only chance. I need volunteers for a suicide run, he announced to the fleet. Small craft only. One-way trip into the belly of the beast. Defiant 6 volunteering. Came the immediate response from Commander Sarah Lee. Fighter Squadron. Ready to try. Negative, Sarah. I need someone who can improvise once they're inside. Someone with the skills to find weak spots and exploit them. Dr. Park looked up from her station. Sir, the research ship Discovery has a small exploration craft. Dr. Kim Min-jun knows xenobiology. If anyone can figure out how to hurt this thing from inside, it's him. Thompson nodded. Discovery. This is Defiant. We're sending you the attack plan. Can your people do it? We can try, came the calm voice of Dr. Kim. Give us covering fire and precise timing. The next few minutes felt like hours. The human fleet executed a coordinated attack designed to distract the Devourer, while the tiny exploration craft approached its feeding ports. Ships died to keep the creature's attention focused away from the single small vessel that represented their only hope. Discovery away, reported Dr. Kim. Entering the feeding system now. Thompson watched the tactical display with held breath. The tiny ship disappeared into the alien creature's massive bulk. Minutes passed. More human ships died under the Devourer's relentless attack. Thompson began to think they had lost their only chance. Then explosions began to bloom inside the creature's hull. Small at first, then larger, as internal systems cascaded into failure. Discovery to fleet, came Dr. Kim's voice, filled with static but triumphant. We found the digestive center. It's not just processing matter, it's converting it to energy and storing it in central nodes. Overload the nodes, and the transmission cut off as the Devourer's entire center section exploded outward. The massive creature convulsed like a dying animal. Its weapon systems going silent. Discovery, report, Thompson called. Silence. Sir, Lieutenant Kim said quietly. Dr. Kim and his team are gone. But look at this. The Devourer was dying. Its hull cracked open in dozens of places. Its lights flickered and went dark. The massive creature that had seemed invincible moments before was now drifting dead in space. We did it, someone whispered over the comm. We actually killed one. Thompson felt no celebration. They had lost 43 ships and their crews. Good people who would never go home. But they had also learned something precious. The Devourers could be killed. All ships, recovery operations for survivors, Thompson ordered. And Dr. Park, I want a full analysis of what Dr. Kim discovered. If more Devourers are coming, we need to understand how to kill them efficiently. As the human fleet regrouped around the dead alien creature, Thompson thought about Dr. Kim and his team. They had found the answer in the belly of the beast, but paid for it with their lives. In the distance, long-range sensors detected new contacts. 16 more Devourers, heading toward the heart of Kethmari space. The real battle was about to begin. The main Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like nightmares given form. Captain Thompson counted 16 of the massive creatures, some even larger than the scout they had barely managed to kill. His remaining 600 ships looked pathetically small against such overwhelming force. Fleet status report, Thompson ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. All vessels report ready, replied Lieutenant Kim. The Kethmari have provided detailed tactical data about internal vulnerabilities. Engineering teams have modified our torpedoes with Dr. Kim's discoveries. Thompson studied the new weapon specifications. Instead of trying to break through the Devourer's armor, the modified missiles would seek out feeding ports and attempt to reach the internal energy conversion systems. It was still a desperate gamble, but at least now they had a plan. Sir, called Communications Officer Park G1, incoming transmission from Tidesinger Velathari on the planet's surface. Put her through. Velathari's musical voice filled the bridge. Captain Thompson, our underwater cities are ready to defend themselves. We will not be helpless victims. Our engineers have learned from your tactics and prepared surprises for any devourer that tries to feed on our oceans. Understood, Tidesinger. Keep your people safe. We'll try to stop them before they reach the planet. No, Captain. We fight together. My people have been studying the quantum signatures Dr. Park identified. We believe the devourers are connected through some form of shared consciousness. Kill the right ones in the right sequence, and you might cause system-wide failures. Thompson felt a spark of hope. Which ones? The largest three. They appear to be command nodes. But Captain, Velathari's voice became sad. To reach them, you would have to go through all the others first. The losses would be terrible. Thompson looked around his bridge at the young faces of his crew. People barely out of their 20s, who should have been exploring peaceful worlds and making scientific discoveries. Instead, they were about to die fighting monsters from the dark between galaxies. All ships, Thompson announced to the fleet. Remember what we learned from Dr. Kim. The Devourers aren't invincible. They're just very, very large predators. And predators have weaknesses. The first Devourer opened fire. Energy beams reached across space, and 4 human ships vanished in balls of superheated plasma. The battle had begun. Thompson's fleet scattered into attack formation. Small groups of ships worked together, drawing fire while others made runs at feeding ports. The modified torpedoes began to find their targets, causing internal explosions that actually damaged the massive creatures. But the cost was horrific. For every devourer they wounded, humanity lost dozens of ships. Thompson watched helplessly as the UNS Seoul, his daughter's ship, took a direct hit. The destroyer broke apart. But he saw escape pods launching. She might still be alive. Sir, Dr. Park called from her science station. I'm detecting massive energy surges from the planet's surface. The Kethmari are doing something. Through the tactical display, Thompson could see new contacts rising from the ocean. Massive biomechanical constructs that looked like a fusion of Kethmari organic technology and human engineering principles. Tidesinger, what are those? Defensive platforms, Velathari replied. We have spent generations preparing for the Devourer's return. Our ancestors built weapons in the deep trenches and taught us how to use them. We are not as helpless as we appear. The Kethmari weapons opened fire. Streams of coherent energy lanced upward from the planet's surface, striking the Devourers with surprising force. The attacks weren't strong enough to kill the massive creatures, but they drew their attention away from the human fleet. This is our chance, Thompson announced. All remaining ships. Focus on the command nodes, the big 3 in the center formation. What followed was the most desperate battle Thompson had ever seen. Human ships flew directly into the teeth of Devourer weapons, sacrificing themselves to give others clear shots at feeding ports. Modified torpedoes streaked through space, many destroyed by defensive fire, but some reaching their targets. The first command node began to show damage. Internal explosions rippled along its hull as energy conversion systems overloaded. But it was still fighting, still killing human ships with every shot. Captain, Lieutenant Kim reported, we've lost another 40 vessels. We're down to fewer than 300 ships. Thompson made the hardest decision of his life. All remaining vessels. Full assault on the primary command node. Everything we have. 10 quote. We have recent quote. The human fleet charged directly at the largest devourer. It was suicide. But it was also their only chance. If the Kethmari were right about the quantum connections, killing the primary node might disable the others. Ship after ship died in the charge. The UNS Harmony, crewed by Thompson's son-in-law, managed to ram its modified torpedo directly into a feeding port before the ship was vaporized. The explosion that followed lit up space like a new star. When the light faded, the primary command node was dead. Its massive hull split open like a cracked egg, spilling the strange energies that had powered it into space. "Sir!" Dr. Park shouted with excitement. "Look at the others!" Across the battlefield, the remaining devourers were convulsing. Some went completely dark. Others began firing randomly, their weapons striking their own kind. The quantum connections that had coordinated their attack were breaking down. "All ships, exploit the confusion," Thompson ordered. "Hit them while they're disabled." The battle turned into a massacre, but this time humanity was winning. Disabled devourers were sitting targets for the modified torpedoes. One by one, the massive creatures died, their hull-cracking death throes lighting up the space around Kethmari's primary world. But victory came with a terrible price. Of the 847 ships that had left Earth, only 193 remained. Thousands of brave humans had died to save a species they had barely known 50 years ago. Thompson slumped in his command chair, exhausted by loss and horror. They had won, but the cost. "Captain," Park G1 said quietly, "incoming transmissions. Multiple vectors." Thompson looked up at the tactical display. New ships were emerging from hyperspace. Sleek crystal vessels that could only be Zephyrian. Advanced technological craft from the Nexari. The massive battlecruisers of the Corvan Empire. The elder species had returned. "Fleet Command, this is High Counselor Zex Thera," came the crystal-clear voice of the Zephyrian leader. "We have come to assist in the final battle." Thompson felt anger rise in his chest. "The final battle? Where were you for the first battle? Where were you when we were dying alone?" There was a long pause before Zex Thara answered. "We were being cowards, Captain Thompson. We told ourselves we were being practical, but we were simply afraid. Watching you fight alone, watching you die for principles we had forgotten, it shamed us back to who we used to be." Undrabout. General Corix's voice joined the conversation. "The Corvan Empire stands ready to honor the alliance we should never have abandoned. We come, not as saviors, but as allies seeking forgiveness." Science Director Quintal added his voice to the others. "The Nexari offer our most advanced weapons and shields. We owe humanity a debt that can never be fully repaid." Thompson looked around his damaged bridge. His crew was exhausted, wounded, grieving for lost friends. But they had done something impossible. They had reminded the galaxy what courage looked like. "Welcome to the fight," Thompson said simply. "But know this, we didn't come here to prove anything to you. We came here because our friends asked for help, and we said yes." The combined fleet began to form up around the planet. Human ships, battered but unbroken, took their place beside the pristine vessels of the elder species. The youngest voice in the galaxy had sung a song of courage that the oldest civilizations had finally remembered how to hear. In the distance, sensors detected one more contact. Something vast and ancient, larger than all the others combined. The original devourer was coming, and this time, they would face it together. The ancient one emerged from hyperspace like a dark planet come to life. Captain Thompson had thought the previous devourers were massive, but this creature dwarfed them all. It was easily the size of Earth's moon, covered in armor that looked millions of years old, pulsing with energies that hurt to look at directly. "Sweet heavens," whispered Lieutenant Kim from his station. "How do we fight something that size?" "Well, I The combined galactic fleet spread out in defensive formation around the Kethmari homeworld. Nearly 1,000 ships from 6 different species, the largest military force assembled in 50,000 years. Yet they all looked like toys compared to the ancient one. "This is Captain Thompson of the UNS Defiant, to all ships," Thompson announced. "Remember what we've learned. These creatures can be killed. They're big. They're old. But they're not gods." "Captain," came High Counselor Zex Thara's voice, "our sensors are detecting something unusual. This creature is transmitting on multiple frequencies. It's trying to communicate." "Put it through," Thompson ordered. The voice that filled every ship in the fleet was ancient beyond measure, speaking in perfect galactic common tongue. "Small creatures of the light, why do you resist the natural order? For 50,000 years, my children and I have slept in the dark between galaxies. We return only when the light grows too bright, when civilizations become too numerous. We are the balance. We are necessity." Thompson stood up from his command chair. "This is Captain Marcus Thompson, speaking for the combined galactic fleet. We resist because our friends asked for help. That's all the reason we need." The Ancient One's laughter was like grinding metal. "Friends? You speak of friends while standing in ships built for war, carrying weapons designed for death. You are predators, just like us. You simply tell yourselves prettier stories." "No," Thompson replied. "We're people who choose to be better than our worst impulses. That's what civilization means. Not perfection, but the choice to try." Foolish words from a species barely 50 years from its home world. What can creatures so young possibly understand about the universe's true nature? Thompson looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Young people, yes, but they had already proven their courage beyond question. Behind him, he could sense the attention of the entire fleet, hundreds of different species listening to this conversation that would decide the fate of the galaxy. "We understand that strength isn't about how much you can destroy," Thompson said. "It's about how much you're willing to sacrifice to protect others. We understand that being afraid doesn't make you a coward. Running away when your friends need help makes you a coward." "Pretty words," the Ancient One replied. "But words will not save your friends when I begin feeding on their sun." On the tactical display, Thompson could see the massive creature changing course. Instead of attacking the fleet, it was heading directly for the Kethmari star. If it began consuming the sun's mass, the entire system would die within days. "All ships," Thompson ordered, "intercept course. We stop it here." The combined fleet moved to block the Ancient One's path. Thousands of weapons opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams and missiles from 6 different civilizations struck the massive creature's hull, creating explosions that lit up space for millions of kilometers. The Ancient One barely slowed. Its armor absorbed the attacks like a mountain absorbing raindrops. Weapon ports along its hull opened, returning fire that vaporized entire squadrons in single shots. "Captain Thompson," called Science Director Quintal from the Nexari flagship, "our weapons are having no effect. This creature's armor is too advanced, too thick." Dr. Park worked frantically at her science station. "Sir, I'm detecting the same quantum connection patterns we saw with the others, but much stronger. This creature is the source. If we could disrupt its control center." "How?" Thompson demanded. "We can't even scratch its hull." "The feeding ports, Doctor," Park said excitedly. "They're larger, more complex than the others. If we could coordinate a massive internal assault, while the external fleet keeps it distracted." Thompson understood immediately. A suicide run. Someone has to get inside that thing and destroy its control systems from within. "Not someone," came Tidesinger Velathari's musical voice over the comm. "Everyone." "Captain, the Kethmari have been analyzing the creature's structure. Its internal spaces are vast, like underwater cities. Multiple teams could work together inside, each targeting different systems." "Where?" General Corix's gruff voice joined the conversation. Corvan warriors volunteer for the internal assault. We have the armor and weapons for close combat. Nexari technical teams ready to identify critical systems, added Science Director Quintal. Zephyrian ships can provide quantum disruption fields to confuse its defenses, said High Counselor Zex Thara. Thompson felt a strange mixture of hope and sadness. The galaxy had finally come together, but it had taken the threat of extinction to make it happen. Defiant will lead the internal assault, Thompson announced. All volunteers meet at Rally Point 7. Everyone else, keep that thing's attention focused on external threats. The next hour was the most terrifying of Thompson's life. His ship, along with dozens of others, flew directly into the Ancient One's feeding mechanisms. The creature's internal spaces were vast and strange, like flying through the digestive system of a metal god. Teams spread out through the creature's innards, following Dr. Park's analysis of critical systems. Corvan warriors fought bizarre internal defenses that seemed part machine, part living tissue. Nexari technicians worked to overload energy conversion nodes, while Zephyrian ships disrupted quantum control pathways. Thompson's team reached what appeared to be the primary control center. It was a vast chamber filled with pulsing organic machinery that hurt to look at directly. At the center sat something that might have been a brain, if brains could be the size of buildings and made of living metal. This is it, Dr. Park confirmed. This is what controls the entire species. Destroy this, and every devourer in the galaxy will die. Thompson looked at the massive control brain. Destroying it would require every explosive they carried. The blast would certainly kill them all, but it would also save trillions of lives across the galaxy. All teams, begin final assault on primary targets, Thompson ordered. It's been an honor serving with you all. I'm sedated. I'm setter. The explosions began small, systems failing throughout the Ancient One's vast body. Then, larger blasts, as energy conversion centers overloaded. Finally, Thompson's team detonated their charges directly against the control brain. The Ancient One's death scream echoed across space and time. Its massive hull cracked open like an egg, spilling strange energies and dying machinery into the void. Throughout the galaxy, every remaining devourer simply stopped moving, their connection to the controlling intelligence severed forever. Thompson found himself floating in space, his ship destroyed but his survival suit intact. Around him, dozens of other survivors drifted among the debris of the Ancient One's corpse. Somehow, incredibly, many of the internal assault teams had survived the creature's death throes. Rescue ships moved in quickly. Thompson found himself aboard a Kethmari medical vessel, being treated by Tide Singer Velathari herself. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid, Shisang spoke gently. You showed us what we had forgotten. That civilization is not about safety or survival. It is about choosing to help others, even when it costs everything. Thompson thought about all the people who hadn't made it, thousands of brave humans and aliens who had died to protect strangers. But he also thought about what they had accomplished. They had reminded the galaxy of its better angels. 6 months later, Thompson stood before the reformed Galactic Council. The chamber looked the same, but everything had changed. New rules governed their relationships now. The human doctrine, they called it. No member species would ever again be abandoned to face extinction alone. The galaxy learned something important, Thompson said in his address to the Council. We learned that our strength doesn't come from our weapons or our ships. It comes from our willingness to stand for each other when everything is falling apart. He looked out at representatives from dozens of species, many of whom had fought beside humanity in the final battle. We are not perfect, Thompson continued. We make mistakes. We get scared. We sometimes choose the easy path instead of the right one. But we also have the capacity to be better than our fears. To choose courage over safety, principle over convenience, hope over despair. In the audience, Tide singer Velathari began to sing. It was the song of standing firm, the new anthem of the galactic community. One by one, other voices joined in, until the entire chamber resonated with music that spoke of courage, sacrifice, and hope. Outside the great windows of Concordia Prime, the stars shone peacefully in the dark. But now, they shone on a galaxy that had remembered what it truly meant to be civilized. The youngest voice had taught the oldest civilizations that true strength lay not in avoiding difficult choices, but in making the right ones regardless of the cost.